So alcohols had OH groups. That was the functional group of an alcohol. Uh, and this was the general formula for an alcohol. Alcohols के अंदर होता था कि वही the naming was the same. It was prop. It means 3 carbon atoms. All means के OH होगा. And the number over here decides के where would the OH be. कौन से वाले carbon atom पे you're going to put the OH. ठीक है, so कौन से वाले carbon atom पे you're going to put the OH group. Now the thing is, अच्छा ये वाला. So this is propan 2 all. And they had a couple of physical properties. They had high melting and boiling points compared to alkanes and alkenes, uh, and they're liquids, and they're non-conductors. Although all of them are non-conductors. Formation के अंदर था कि we did hydration of alkenes, and then last time we did fermentation of glucose. Fermentation of glucose is you take glucose, and this glucose could come from any place. Uh, and that glucose is fermented. Yeast is added. Anaerobic conditions must be present, which is absence of oxygen and 25 to 35 room temperature. This is the optimum temperature for a biological catalyst. Most biological things they work at 25 to 35. Higher temperature के ऊपर, it's going to get denatured. The yeast enzyme is going to break down at higher temperature, and lower temperature के ऊपर it's going to be inactive. Achha, then I told you that the reaction alcohol is produced, ethanol specifically is produced, and the reaction has very low yield. Why? क्योंकि जैसे ही alcohol produce होता है, जैसे आपके hand sanitizers होते हैं, they're made of alcohol, वो yeast को ही मार देता है, ठीक है, which is producing it. तो इसलिए the production of yeast immediately stops. So the yield or output is very very low. और वो जो alcohol होता है, it's removed by distillation from the mixture. और ये था कि if oxygen is present, oxygen must not be present. If it is present, the alcohol gets oxidized to carboxylic acid. तो उल्टा acid के अंदर convert हो जाता है. Anyways, we had to start from this point onwards. The next thing that we had to do was we had to. I said, what's the next thing? It's oxidation of alcohols. ठीक है, it's oxidation of alcohols. And we're only going to do the oxidation of one type of alcohol, um, which are primary alcohols. You don't really need to know really what primary alcohols are. Primary alcohols are लेकिन थोड़ा सा idea दे देता हूँ कि alcohols that have OH groups at the end of the chain, not in the middle. So primary alcohols are alcohols that have OH attached to the end of the chain. और end का मतलब start भी हो सकता है, ठीक है? I mean both ends. Any chain has two ends. ठीक है? So that's a primary alcohol, and we're only going to talk about the oxidation of primary alcohols. अब इसमें ये है कि you need an oxidizing agent. ठीक है? You need an oxidizing agent, and oxidizing agent is uh, it's two things. One is K2Cr2O7 acidified. That's called potassium dichromate 6. You just have to memorize this. ठीक है? It's an oxidizing agent. ठीक है? We have done this earlier as well. We're going to do this again. You have to remember that potassium dichromate is an oxidizing agent. What it does is it oxidizes other substances. और क्या मतलब होता था ऑक्सीडेशन का? मतलब ऑक्सीडेशन का मतलब क्या होता था? It was a gain of oxygen or loss, you can call it loss of hydrogen, or there was another word for that, and that was loss of electrons. Okay, there were three definition of oxidation. So this is what it's going to do. An oxidizing agent is going to make the other substance gain oxygen. Yeah, but it's going to make the other substance lose hydrogen, or it's going to make the other substance lose electrons. Okay, so potassium dichromate 6 plus reflux. Reflux अब बाद में लिखते हैं. Color change, when it reacts, it has a color change which is orange to green. So it has a color change that happens, which is usually orange to green. And then there's a second oxidizing agent, and that's KMF4, acidified. It's known as potassium magnate. It's known as potassium magnate 7. Now, potassium magnate 7, the color change for potassium magnate 7 is going to be from purple to colorless. So I'm going to just repeat, okay, to oxidize an alcohol, you need two substances, either of the two. It's either oxidizing agent. I mean, it's K2Cr2 7 potassium dichromate 6 or potassium magnate 7, and you should remember the color change. Plus, one thing else that needs to be to happen is reflux. Reflux is basically heating of volatile substances. You always heat volatile substances by reflux. What are volatile substances that have low melting and boiling points? So one example is alcohols. Alcohols are very volatile. But although वो liquids होते हैं, लेकिन you've used hand sanitizers. They evaporate very very quickly. ठीक है? And they have a very perfumes के अंदर भी alcohols होते हैं, so they evaporate very quickly. And they're very volatile क्योंकि उनके boiling points बहुत low होते हैं. So पानी इवेपोरेट देर से करता है क्योंकि उसका बॉइलिंग पॉइंट थोड़ा हाई होता है. अल्कोहल्स के बॉइलिंग पॉइंट थोड़े से लो होते हैं, which is why they tend to evaporate or vaporize very quickly. अच्छा, but what is reflux? Reflux is कि when you try to heat a substance that is volatile, what's going to happen is कि substance जो है वो तो उड़ जाएगा, ठीक है, all of it is going to evaporate and it's going to escape. So for example, you have alcohol and you've added K2Cr2O7 to it. अब मसला ये कि हीट करोगे एसिडिफाइड. एसिडिफाइड का मतलब है कि बीच में एसिड डला हुआ है. इफ यू मतलब H+1, रिमेंबर दिस, ये भी मैं छोटा सा पॉइंट लिख दूं कि दिस H+1 over here, it just shows कि there's an acid in it as well. ठीक है? Is this clear to everyone? Sadra, is this clear? Mahad, is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, so you're heating it. जैसे ही हीट करोगे क्या होगा? All of it is going to start evaporating and escaping. You don't want it to escape. You want it to react with K2Cr2O7. So, I mean, you don't want it to evaporate. I mean, you'll be left with nothing over here if you do that. So what is done is a condenser is placed on top of it. So the opening, let's make this. So this opening on its on the mouth of the opening, there's a condenser that is placed, and the condenser has. This condenser is attached with water in, water out. ठीक है, so this is going to be filled by water. ठीक है, so cool down the vapor. This entire thing is filled by water, and it's a condenser, water in. Anyways, if by any chance vapors are trying to escape and they reach this point, the cold environment would make the vapors condense and they're going to fall back into the container. So that's what reflux is. Well, reflux is simply heating, but by placing a condenser on top, uh, you prevent any of the alcohol from escaping. So all of the alcohol is going to get oxidized. As a reaction, क्या होगा? The reaction that's going to happen is कि the alcohol would react with the oxidizing agent, which अच्छा उसको हम square bracket में लिख रहे हैं O के साथ. I'm not going to write K2Cr27. I'm not going to write KMnO4 क्योंकि the whole equation would be very complicated. Just write O instead. Oxidizing agent का काम क्या था? Gain of oxygen. So it provides it with oxygen, and the alcohol would change into a carboxylic acid. Plus water molecules are produced. ठीक है, this O represents ये जो ऊपर हमने K2Cr27 और KMnO4 लिखे थे, these are these oxidizing agents. So I'm going to pick an example and pick any example like ethanol. ठीक है, so like ethanol, you have ethanol over here. Uh, you add the oxidizing agent, the alcohol changes into carboxylic acid. Plus water molecule is produced, right? So, but this, I mean, the reaction is very simple. Take any alcohol, it changes into carboxylic acid, and all the changes happen to this carbon atom, the one that was forming, that was with the OH group. I mean, it's still with the OH group, except that now there's an oxygen added to it. So if you have ethanol, it's going to change into ethanoic acid. Right? So if there's ethanol, it changes into ethanoic acid and so on. Is this idea clear? Sidra, is this clear? Anna, is this clear? Ahmed?
Yes.
अच्छा, so प्रोपेनॉल होगा, प्रोपेनोइक एसिड होगा, ठीक है. So there's, पर उसके अंदर भी कोई साइंस नहीं है, बस simple oxidation. So for example, propanol, so propanol would change into what's propanoic acid, that's it. Plus water is going to be produced. ठीक है, so that's pretty much it. इसके अंदर और कुछ नहीं है. Just remember कि reflux needs to be done. These are your two oxidizing agents, and you must remember the color changes. So this is oxidation of alcohols. Is this clear to everyone? We're done with the, we're pretty much done with the alcohols. There's only one last thing, and that is the formation of esters. ठीक है, these are very important. Okay, what are esters? just let me quickly think. Is there anything left? Oxidation of alcohols, that's pretty much it. Okay, there's nothing else to it. But जो भी होगा, methanol, methanoic acid, propanol, propanoic acid, butanol changes into butanoic acid. Now, esters. You're going to talk about esters, and esters are these fruity, sweet-smelling liquids, oily liquids. Now, a lot of times they're used in perfumes. ठीक है, actually, most perfumes are a type of ester, and food flavorings. So, food flavors, your artificial food flavors, are usually esters. For example, ice creams. Okay, you have ice creams and juices, etc. Like if you drink mango juice, then there's a very high probability that it has nothing to do with mangoes, and there's a huge probability that it's actually just an ester that tastes like mango. Similarly, ice creams. If you're eating strawberry ice cream, then there's a very high probability that it has nothing to do with strawberries. It's probably an ester that actually tastes and smells like strawberry. So you have these esters, and they're very important. Now, how are esters formed? So you just have to look at the reaction that esters are formed when two things react. A carboxylic acid decides to react with an alcohol. The two combine, and they combine to form an ester. And in the process, they also produce a water molecule. And this is a reversible reaction. It could also go in the opposite direction. So it can go in both directions. So an ester is produced and a water molecule is produced. Now it's called a condensation reaction in the forward direction. Why? Because condensations are those reactions in which water molecules are produced. In the backward direction, it's known as a hydrolysis reaction. The reason it's called hydrolysis is that water reacts with ester and breaks down the ester to form alcohol and carboxylic acid. So whenever you see lysis, that means decomposition. So because of water, there's a decomposition of the ester, and it breaks down into two things. So you call it hydrolysis. अब इसमें ये करना है कि I'm going to write down the conditions for both. The conditions for forming an ester is you need a few drops of concentrated H2SO4 plus reflux. For breaking it, you need dilute H2SO4 or NaOH. Plus, there should be reflux. Anyway, so this is the overall reaction. A carboxylic acid reacts with an alcohol to produce an ester and a water molecule. अच्छा पहली चीज एस्टर है क्या और बल्कि अभी डिसाइड कर लेते हैं इधर बल्कि साइड पे कर लेते हैं ठीक है An ester is a molecule that has the following functional group, and that is okay, there's going to be a C double bond O and O. अच्छा इस साइड पे there's going to be carbon chains ठीक है मतलब H etc चल रहा है और उस साइड पे there could be H or a carbon chain. So anyways, if a molecule has this thing in the middle, specifically this thing, if it has this functional group, and on one side there's a carbon chain, on the other side there's a carbon chain or a hydrogen. Sides be important. It's not this side is different, this side is different. It is single O, the other side is C double bond O. This is known as your ester link. Okay, this is your ester link, and or you can call it the functional group of an ester. As anyways, coming back to the point, how are esters formed? So take a carboxylic acid. Let's say I pick any propanoic acid. ये भी थोड़ी देर बाद बनाना है सारों ने, ठीक है? So you have propanoic acid, and this propanoic acid reacts with an alcohol. Let's take ethanol. So one thing that should be done is कि the carboxylic acid. So one thing that should be done is that the alcohol, well, one of them has to be drawn the other way around, ताकि both functional groups are in front of each other. ठीक है, we want both functional groups to be facing each other. ठीक है, so groups face each other. तो एक को उल्टा करके ड्रॉ करना पड़ेगा. And उसके बाद the next step that's going to happen is okay, the carboxylic acid would lose its OH and the alcohol would lose its H. ठीक है, ये दोनों बीच में से निकल जाएंगे. So draw the whole molecule again. अच्छा, ये दोनों मिलके बनाएंगे क्या? They're going to combine to form water molecules. अच्छा, if they do that, start to draw the whole thing again. Except for मतलब इसका बल्कि हम OH अभी लगा लेते हैं. There's going to be OH over here and H. अच्छा, ये अब ये कि I told you कि इसका OH रिमूव हो जाएगा, उसका H, ठीक है, they're going to get removed. ये ऊपर हमने शो किया हुआ है, ठीक है, they're going to get removed, and the two things would link up with each other. They're going to link up with each other and they're going to combine to form an ester in the middle. So they're going to combine to form an ester in the middle, और water molecules जो है ना वो 7 एक्स्ट्रा प्रोड्यूस होंगे. तो ये वो एस्टर लिंक बीच में बन गया. ठीक है, so every time ignore the carbon chains, just look at, there's going to be a carboxylic acid functional group and there's going to be an alcohol functional group. The two would combine together in the middle. उनको आमने सामने draw one of the molecules the other way around. The OH and the H would be lost, they would form water over here, and this carbon and this oxygen over here, they're going to link up. ये clear है? Anna clear है? Mahal clear है?
Yes.
तो बस ये reaction है, ठीक है? Every time it's going to be a similar reaction. तो पहले तो एक quickly ना try and draw this. ये मुझे जल्दी से भेजो. Okay, I have ethanol plus butanoic acid. ठीक है, ethanol plus butanoic acid. ठीक है, so there's double bond ON, OH, and there's H. अच्छा, ये सारे हैं. तो बीच में से क्या रिमूव करना है? इसका OH gone, इसका H gone, and you bring them close together and connect them. तो ये आपस में इन्होंने कनेक्ट कर दिए, ठीक है, and that's right in the middle. That is where your ester link is. वो H और OH किधर गए? They have ended up forming a water molecule. Anna, is this clear? Sindra, is this clear?
Yes.
बाकी अहमद अहमद कहाँ तक पहुंचे हो, कुछ बनाया? अहमद है भी क्लास में कि नहीं? अहमद, महत, महत, can you hear me?
Sir, my internet disconnected a while ago. I just rejoined.
So try and do this next one, which is methanoic acid plus propanol. ठीक है, try and do this one, everyone.
I sent it.
ठीक है सर, just 1 second checking. ठीक है, so Sidra, it's almost correct. You're missing one hydrogen. That's it. In methanoic acid. Can you see? Can you see the hydrogen?
Yeah, I can see it.
ठीक है. और एना ये आपने भेजा है?
जी।
अच्छा एना, आपने सिद्रा का ऑपोजिट किया, आपने एक हाइड्रोजन एक्स्ट्रा कर दिया. वो ढूंढो कहाँ पे किया आपने. मेथनोइक एसिड में एक हाइड्रोजन एक्स्ट्रा है, नजर आ रहा है? वरना ठीक है, बाकी सब कुछ. अच्छा, इसमें मेक श्योर है ना, आपने एक और गलती की है, विच इज कि व्हेन यू ड्रॉ प्रोपेनॉल, में आई हैव प्रीवियसली टोल्ड यू मेनी टाइम्स के OH को अगर इधर लिखोगे तो it's always the O that's connecting, ठीक है? अगर OH को दूसरी साइड पे लिखोगे ना तो O इस साइड पे होना चाहिए. Do you get the point?
Yes.
तो H हमेशा बाहर वाली साइड पे होता है. It's on the outside. ठीक है, math looks fine. चलो ठीक है, we'll continue with this. अहमद आपका एक भी नहीं मिला मुझे अभी तक. अच्छा, we'll continue with this tomorrow then, ठीक है? Esters के साथ. चलिए, okay, take care.
Allah Hafiz, sir.
Allah Hafiz.